It's the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel, and the NFL season kicks off in only 2 weeks. So we're taking you through our favorite mid-round picks. 6 players to target if you're going to win your league this year. So join us live on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. I'm Ben Wasley. Welcome to the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. Today we're talking mid-round picks, and I'm joined by the man who's never a mid-round pick, Bobby LaMarco, and my favorite sleeper pick, Jeff Kezar. Jeff, it's great to have you back this week. How's your fantasy drafts going so far?
They are going well. They are lively. It's fun right now. And as we get closer to the start of the season, they're only going to get a little more intense.
Love it. Love it. And Bobby, I know that we're drafting back-to-back in a league at the moment, and we have been sniping each other for several weeks straight. How are you feeling? Are you handling it?
You know, honestly, I got to tell you, I've drafted a lot of termination letters the last few weeks, all directed and ready to hit send via email, but I have recoiled. I said, you know what? It's a part of the game. You know what I mean? You got to respect. I respect your knowledge. That's why you're with me on the Razzball journey, so I got to expect to be sniped from time to time. However, I am a little curious. Where would you draft me in this draft? Am I like a 1-2 turn pick, or am I more like, you're finding value in the third, like a Rashee Rice? Like, where does that comment come from? Where would I be, a stud or like a value?
I feel like, is it like a super host draft? Am I allowed to start like 2 hosts in my league, or do I have to have like one host and then like multiple guests? Like, I feel like that really depends. Yeah. Like in a super host league, you're definitely like end of the first round, I reckon.
Gotcha.
But in a standard league, definitely like solid second and third round.
Yeah, nice. That's good. League format is key, baby. That's going to really help us throughout this process. Good call.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it works. Jeff, where are you going? Where's your spot in the podcast hosting draft?
When is my spot? Whenever y'all want me to do this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we gotta get. I'm in. I'm down, Jeff. You just signed up to host next week. Congratulations. Yeah. I'm in.
Exactly.
I'm ready.
He's like, take me earlier in your draft because I'm ready to go. I like it. So today we're talking about mid-round picks. And we're starting off with someone that people have not been talking about on the Packers. Everyone's on the Dontavian Wicks train, but Jeff, you're talking about a different Packer wide receiver. Who are we going with?
I'm going with Christian Watson. There's a famous PhD, Sheldon Cooper, from the Big Bang, as you know. He's taking care of his asymmetrical hamstrings for all my nerds out there. But no, in all seriousness, though, Christian Watson is a guy that I'm really excited about this season. As long as he is healthy, which I think he is going into this season right now, he is going to ascend up to be the number 1 receiver for Jordan Love. When digging into some of his numbers, I know he said health has been an issue, but over the last 2 seasons and 23 games, he scored 12 touchdowns, which is basically a TD every other game. And if he continues that trend for a whole season, provided he plays a full season, I can see him as a floor 8 touchdowns, and I think he can approach double digit up to 13 with Jordan Love as his quarterback. So that's just a taste of what he can provide to fantasy owners late in drafts. And then looking into last season, with the 3 receivers, he did play 9 games with Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs. In those games, he did average 11 points PPR on 6 targets. Nothing too great, though, but what he did do, though, he scored the most points for a Packers receiver during that stretch when he scored 27.5 against the Chiefs in Week 13 and then Week 12 with 20. So he's shown that he can be the top scoring receiver for Green Bay, and it just gets me excited at what he can bring to the table this year with this offense. Last season, additionally, he had a team-high 27% red zone target share. So when Jordan Love's in the red zone, he's going his way. And in fantasy, I want the receiver who's going to get touchdowns because that's what's going to get you the high points. That's going to win you your weeks. And additionally, there's a kind of other nice little fun stats for you. He was the highest on the team with ADOT. His average depth of target at 15.4. And he had the most air yards per reception at nearly 30 yards per reception last season. Digging deeper into some of those numbers, he's in some elite company. And back-to-back years, he's averaging 15 yards per reception and only 13 receivers have at least 100 targets with a higher yards per reception. So heading into this season, as long as he stays healthy, he's the big playmaker for Jordan Love. He's getting the touchdowns. And what I love most heading into this season, the Packers have the second best strength of schedule for receivers. So as going as wide receiver 41 with the ADP of 92 in the mid-7th round, I'm selecting him every time.
Look, I got to be honest, he definitely has a lot of upside. And you're talking about basically the definition of a boom-bust receiver. He's going to have a lot of massive games because he's going to score a lot of touchdowns. He's going to make a lot of big plays. And realistically, when you're taking a guy in that range, you're perfectly happy to have that sort of boom-bust player. I guess for me, the other side of the coin, Packers are using a pretty heavy 4-receiver set. We do see a lot of Dontavian Wicks. Romeo Doubs actually gets the most snaps of anybody. And they featured Jaden Reed on most of their passing downs. They only put him out there on passing downs, and they use him more than anybody else. So, and on top of that, they're going to lean heavily on their run game because they brought in Josh Jacobs. They have talented tight ends. That's a lot of target competition. So you're talking about a player who's going to need those big plays every week to pay off for your fantasy team. And that's not an ideal situation in PPR. So, Bobby, in PPR, is Christian Watson someone that we can reliably take and actually use?
Yeah, I think his ADP is baking in a lot of the risk already. I mean, if you could take, I mean, you're getting in around 8-9 range in a 12-team league. I mean, you're pretty much already set up with your roster. Like he might be your first bench guy at that point, depending if you take a tight end, how deep the starting lineups are. I get all that, but I am a Romeo Doubs guy. You know, I'm Juliet, basically. You know what I mean? So, like, it's really romantic up in here right now. I just want my guy to be on the field and not really worry about the rotation. However, I am only 3 spots lower than ADP. I have him at 89. ADP has him at 86. Over on Razzball.com, by the way, the top 150. We got positional rankings. We got ADP, whatever you need at Razzball.com. Back to you, Bob. Anyway, so in 16 career games with Jordan in his career, when he played over 60% of the snaps, he averages 14 PPR points per game. Like, he is good when he's on the field. Problem is, that's only 16 games. He's supposed to play a lot more than that, I believe. Yeah. You count how many years he's been in the league. So that would have been wide receiver 23 last year. So it's like, if you are buying into this idea that his hamstrings are getting better and he's going to be on the field more, because I think 60% is not unrealistic at all. 2/3 of the snaps is very realistic. And so I think if he's playing in most 2 receiver sets anyway, honestly, it is worth the upside. So I actually will have some Watson here and there, but as of today, I might be leaning Dobbs, so probably not.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think at his price in particular, he's definitely someone that you want in the later part of these mid-rounds, around that 8th, 9th round. I think he's super interesting. Another guy who's going a little bit earlier is Rashee Rice. Bobby, what's your thoughts on Rashee Rice? He's a guy you really like.
Okay, I'm losing it here. By the way, it gets to a certain point where, all right, let's forget the narratives that came out early, the suspension, okay? The NFL flat out told us months ago that they are not doing anything until the court hears the case. The court date is in December 14th, okay? That's week 15 by the time they hear the court case. Then the NFL is going to need a little time to make their decision. And do you think they're going to suspend Patrick Mahomes' #1 wide receiver heading into the playoffs for ratings? I don't think so. This might be a 2025 thing. This is how I feel. So hit the reset button and let's go back to Rashee Rice last year when he became the full-time starter. So last season he played 12 games, over 60% of the snaps. He averaged 15.9 PPR points per game. That would have been wide receiver 15 last year. Okay, that's 3rd round. That's 3rd round right there. And by the way, he still has Patrick Mahomes. I understand they got Marquise Brown now, Xavier Worthy. There's a little more competition. Sure, I get all that. But then that's only 60% of the snaps. If he moves up to 75% of the snaps last year, in 7 games, he averaged 17.7 PPR points per game. That would have been wide receiver 6. He had 6 targets on 17 routes in the preseason. So it's just Patrick. This is going to be Patrick Mahomes' main #1. This very rare. Do we get an opportunity to draft the best quarterbacks, wide receiver 1, in the 4th, probably 5th round? That's insane to me. Please take him every single draft.
I mean, you say he's Patrick Mahomes' wide receiver 1, but Travis Kelce is Patrick Mahomes' wide receiver 1. He's really his second target. But I do understand what you're saying.
Listen. Here's the part I disagree on there too, because Travis Kelce down the stretch did take a step back in points per game when Rashee Rice took on the full-time role. And I think a part of that is because they were dialing back. They wanted to take a little off Kelce in the regular season because they need him for the playoffs. So I could see a scenario where Kelce's not getting as many snaps and targets and routes this year because the Chiefs are, the Patriots. I mean, they're basically the Patriots now, but they're going to be in the playoffs. So in my opinion, they're probably going to lean on these younger guys early, save Kelce this year. And when they get to the playoffs, then we'll see the old Travis Kelce or down the stretch. So I hear you though, but give me the number 2. Scratch it. Give me the number 2 option for Patrick Mahomes. I will take that all day.
Yeah. Look, I like Rice. I think he's the best value in his range. But my concern is around his target share, mainly because last season, the number 3 was Justin Watson with 53 targets. They now bring in Xavier Worthy. They now bring in Marquise Brown once he's healthy. Realistically, those targets are going to have to come from somewhere. And they're still going to have those random targets to guys like Mecole Hardman on those random trick plays. So you're not going to lose those targets suddenly. It's going to have to come from someone. A lot of them will come from Kelce. But there is that concern that potentially Rice's targets won't really go up that much. Even if he's running more routes, that doesn't mean he's necessarily going to be getting more targets. So if his target share per route drops, all of a sudden those extra route numbers really don't help him that much. Suddenly his low-end wide receiver 2 numbers could drop into that wide receiver 3 range, and you lose all the upside you're hoping for when you drafted him around the wide receiver 30-ish or something like that. So Jeff, you've obviously got Watson. Okay.
I got to say one thing here. I just want to call something out here. And I'm sorry, Jeff. Jeff, just wait, Jeff, okay? I know you're just chomping at the bit to get back here. I want to just say, just look at Patrick Mahomes, by the way, had a bad season last year for Patrick Mahomes. 4,100 yards, 27 touchdowns. The prior 3 seasons, between 47 and 5,200 yards, between 37 and 41 touchdowns. So you're looking at another 10 to 15 touchdowns, another roughly 700 to 800 to 1,000 yards passing. That's essentially one player's production right there that you want to throw into this. So I get what you're saying. I totally do. But I think Watson's going to get bumped out. Worthy's going to come in. I think Marquise Brown could just take all that that volume, because I think Mahomes is going to be better. I think a lot of this had to do with the fact that Mahomes was struggling early on last year. He didn't have weapons. So I think that's going to change. Mahomes will be better. The pie will get bigger. But I do hear you. But you got to understand, we're not drafting him as the top 15 wide receiver right now. He's going in the 5th round. And so you're getting him probably to closer to 25, 30. So that's the point. Like, he has 15 to 10 upside going at 2025. I think that's his floor, which is where you want to draft players.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
Sorry. Jeff, go for it. Rashee Rice.
Shit. What Bob said there. I'm 100% with Bob saying there. Yeah, no, I think Rice is going to be emerging as the top receiver option for Mahomes, and getting him at that position just feels like a steal. I know that's his floor, but I think he's going to be better, honestly, as well. So I'm selecting Rice as well. He was on my list as well. It was between him and Watson, but I want to go somewhere a little bit deeper. But Rice is right there for me as well.
Dude,
yeah.
Is that? Did you just take a shot at me for that? I mean, I get it.
No,
I get it. It's a little early.
It's a great choice.
It technically falls into the 5th round, Jeff. I didn't break any rules. I just want to go on record.
Love it. Now, I've got to bring up my guy, because you guys are all, going real hard on your guys, and they're fine. They're fine picks. I guess they're okay. But in these rounds 5 to 10, you don't need these guys who are getting low-end wide receiver 2 numbers. You need a wide receiver 1 from last year. You need Amari Cooper. You need the guy that, according to Bobby's amazing ADP data, which you should check out at football.rasball.com if you haven't already, you can get Cooper, last year's wide receiver 14, and frankly, a top 12 wide receiver for most of the year, even though he missed 2 games, in the middle of the 5th round. Most of the guys who finish where he was are being drafted in the first 2 rounds, and he's going in the 5th. It makes no sense at all. Remember, this was while he was receiving passes not only from Deshaun Watson for 6 games when he was looking real rusty. He was getting it from old man Joe Flacco. He was getting it from the rookie Dorian Robinson-Thompson, or I've got that the wrong way around. You know what I mean. The backup's backup, PJ Walker. Former tight end, Jeff Driscoll. These are the quarterbacks he was getting passes from, and he was still finishing as a stud wide receiver. And you can get him as the wide receiver 29 this year. It's absolutely insane. What the heck, Bobby? What is going on?
So you're not, you know me, man. I'm in on Cooper. Like I took him in the league. We're in together. His ADP right now is like just outside of 50 at 53. I have him all the way up at 33. So you're speaking to the choir here. And I think a lot of this has to do with reach, right? And just by the way, I want to go on record here. The ADP tool, I get a little excited about this because I have literally put all the data, all the ADP data from multiple sites into one place for you, so people can actually compare Yahoo to Sleeper to ESPN to Best Ball 10s. So you can actually see, oh wow, because a lot of early drafts are best ball. So you're seeing guys in the industry who are taking guys like, on Best Ball 10s and NFC, and you're like, okay, where the Yahoo is mostly default rankings right now, and that's their ADP. So we want to give you something to say, okay, where's really these guys going? So I like it a lot. All right, maybe I'm a little biased, but anyway, back to Amari Cooper. All right, so why I like Cooper so much is because he's good with Watson. And that you can't say the same thing about David Njoku, who I talked about just yesterday or 2 days ago. It was 2 days ago. In 11 games with Watson, 14.3 PPR points per game. That had been wide receiver 20 value there. But last season, in the 5 games with Watson, we saw the growth. He averaged 17.6 PPR points per game out in wide receiver 6. Now, I like Ken Dorsey coming in. There's a little more talk about being pass heavy because Nick Chubb is hurt. They did add Jerry Jeudy, but the biggest feather in the cap, I know Joe Flacco is awesome, but if you're going to go to the next best backup, it's Jameis Winston, the man who went 30 for 30. Like, this guy is beautiful, and I love the fact that if the shoulder injury happens, Jameis Winston is going to be a ton of fun, and I think actually gives you more security for a guy because you're not dealing with the guy you brought up, Thomason Robinson, whatever his name is. You're not dealing with that stuff anymore. You have a really good backup.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. We're talking about a guy who's got 7 top 20 finishes in the last 9 years. Realistically, he's just a really good footballer. He's like Mike Evans I talked about last week. He's super consistent. We know how talented he is. We're talking about an early former first-round pick who's really panned out. Jeff, what are your thoughts on Amari Cooper? Can you handle taking a Browns player?
Yeah, I mean, I was nervous early on with Watson, but then they went and brought in Jameis Winston, who I've been a big fan of him. He's a character off the football field, but on the field, he's a dog, and he's at the dog pound. So I do like Amari Cooper where he is going right now. He's just one of the best route runners. So you can't put a price on that. With guys who can just get open, they can create their own separation and make it that much easier for the quarterback to give them the ball. And Cooper has – just last year alone, but his whole career, he's catching balls from a plethora of quarterbacks. So it doesn't matter who his quarterback is, he still produces. So where he's going right now, he's another guy you should definitely target.
Yep, totally agree. We all love Amari Cooper. You should love Amari Cooper too. And you know what we love? We love it when you guys get into the comments and let us know what you're thinking. Bobby, we got a couple of comments. Let's get into those.
Yeah. Jamie's in the chat as always. Jamie, thank you for joining us once again. We appreciate it. Honestly, I think Jamie I'm a Kyron Williams guy, and so Jamie loves to bring up Blake Corum as a way to bring down it will not happen, okay? It will never happen. I am going all the way with him. And this is the one that makes me, like, I almost want to tell you to shut the blank up there, Jamie, because if I start seeing Rashee Rice going in the damn 6th round, that is absurd. Because I'm upset with you, Jamie. That means in the 5th round, you let him go. That is shame on you, young man. Do not let him go past the 5th round ever again. Back to you, Ben Wasley.
Look, I'm going to agree with Jamie. Blake Corum is a league winner, assuming that there's an injury to Kyron Williams. If Kyron Williams gets injured, all of a sudden Blake Corum's going to be fantastic. But you're going to need that injury first because Kyron Williams himself is already a league winner. And that's a really good transition into running backs. And Jeff, I got to be honest, a little bit shocked by the running back you've picked here because he's a name that a lot of people have been pretty down on for most of the preseason, but starting to become clear he's probably the number one there still. Shock us, surprise us, give us the name.
In the mile high, Javonte Williams. I've been high on him beginning of the preseason. You can check out me and Sky talking about him earlier in the preseason, but he's continued to do what I thought he was going to do. What's more important, though, is that he's a season removed from that brutal ACL, LCL tear injury in 22. And historically, these running backs and players coming back from injury are better their second year. And he wasn't too shabby last year. He wasn't the most efficient running back last year, but he still got a serious workload from a guy coming off a serious injury, though. He had 200 plus carries a season ago, which was top 20 with touches. And then digging a little deeper in some of his stats and other running backs, which I was kind of shocked about, but he was one of 8 running backs with 200 plus carries and a minimum 45 receptions. One of 10 running back with 200 plus carries and 58 targets last season. And so Sean Payton, as their OC and the head coach in Denver, they weren't shying away from him. They brought in Samaje Perine, and they still kept feeding him the ball. So looking into some coach speak, during the preseason, Sean Payton really wanted him to cut down weight, and he lost over 11 pounds to get back closer to his college weight. So if your head coach is requesting you do something and you do it, I'm pretty sure you're going to get rewarded. And that's with more touches. Kind of dating back to his time in New Orleans, he gave his running backs the ball. He had 5 instances in over his 15 years that had at least 200 carries. Williams did it already last year. And then on 8 times, a running back had at least 250 touches. Williams did that last year. So I don't see why he won't get at least 250 touches again this season. He's a 3-down back. And now with Bo Nix starting, who we all like here at the Razzball channel. Shout out to the Northeast fans over there with Sky, but he's still a rookie, and I think they're going to have to rely on Javonte a little bit more. So, and then looking into this season, they're in middle of the pack with the O-line per PFF, but I do like that they have the 10th easiest strength of schedule for running backs as well. So he's a guy that I've seen at running back, 28, 30. I have him at my running back ranks at 25 or 24 right now. With the injury to Jaylen Warren. So he's a guy I might take a little bit earlier than some players, but I think you're going to get a 3-down back later in drafts.
I got to be honest, I'm on the other side of the coin. Not strongly on the other side of the coin, but my concerns are the following. Firstly, there's been a lot of buzz about Jaleel McLaughlin getting more involved. I don't want Jaleel McLaughlin in my team, but I do think he's going to be inconvenient enough to make it that Javonte Williams isn't a true every down back. It seems to me that they might be slightly phasing Samaje Perine out based on what we've seen in the preseason, and we might see McLaughlin doing a lot more receiving work, but it was also very clear, even from training camp, that McLaughlin was clearly the guy that they're going to rely on that's definitely going to make the roster, and everyone else is fighting it out for this Williams spot. It does seem like Javonte Williams has won the role, and he's certainly ahead of Perine, and he's definitely at this stage ahead of Audric Estime as well. But I am concerned about what's going to happen moving forward. My other concern with the Broncos, Vegas has them winning 5 or 6 games. That's not very good. In the Razzball win-loss split tool, we saw that Javonte Williams last year was averaging under 9 points per game in a loss. You do that over the course of a season, you are finishing as the running back 42. That's real ugly. So he's going to need to step it up in losses, and he's going to need a lot more production for me to feel good, especially in PPR, about a mid-round running back. Bobby, would you take Javonte Williams? Is he someone that you can rely on?
First of all, I got to tell you, Ben, other side of the coin, I'm on the coin side with you, Jeff. First of all, down under, I'm backing my American brother here. Let's go all day. The other thing is, Ben takes a subtle shot because in our mutual league, and by the way, Ben, you're on the clock in our Gridiron League. Feel free to.
That's because you randomly took Gabe Davis while we were talking.
Hey, whatever. I'm multitasking here. I'm producing. I'm creating laughter. I'm also drafted fantasy players. That's what I do here.
I did laugh at your pick. That is true.
Yeah. All right. First of all, let's get one thing straight. I drafted Jaleel McLaughlin, and you throw out shade saying pass. Oh yeah, I wouldn't want on my team. I see what you're doing here. Okay. I have not made a single comment about any of your picks. Your head. But you know what? It is what it is. Let's move on to some actual analysis. Let's be bigger men here. I'm going to do that. So Javonte Williams, by the way, it's a multi-ligament knee injury 2 years ago that happened to him. Pro Football Doc and all some of the other guys that I follow on the injury side basically last year was a wash. All the stats that happened last year, I do not care. No guys returned from a multi-knee ligament injury in the first 12 months and dominate for fantasy football. And honestly, so it doesn't, his historical stats last year specifically don't really impact me too much. And the other thing is, like, Sean Payton has proven one thing. He wants his guys. This is why he pushed out Russell Wilson. He traded away Jerry Jeudy. He doesn't like certain players. And then sure enough, Javonte has slowly earned back his trust. He lost the weight, which, by the way, is one of the best things you want to hear from a running back. The other thing is, like, historically speaking, there's been a lot of running back success. I know Alvin Kamara is the biggest name, but Mark Ingram had a lot of good seasons before Alvin Kamara got there with Sean Payton. Even guys like Lat Murray had like RB3 seasons, which are nowhere near the talent of Javonte. The offensive line is interesting. 4 or 5 starters return. And by the way, a thing I like about this too is Samaje Perine is on the roster bubble. And the last preseason game, they actually rotated Javonte Williams in on third downs. So Jaleel McLaughlin's a small dude. I don't think he's going to hold up under pass pro. So if Javonte is going to get some third down work here too, on top of being that thumper. And finally, Bo Nix, if you look at his college film, he actually did use Bucky Irving last year at Oregon a decent amount in the passing game. So he is willing to throw to his running backs, and the receiving core is just kind of meh. So there could be some extra targets for him too. So I'm in on Javonte. I actually have almost 15 to 20 spots higher than ADP.
I can't believe you would call Tim Patrick meh. Ridiculous.
I do like Tim Patrick though. I like it.
Look, Jeff, I had to go at your guy. I've got to give you one chance to defend yourself. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're just wrong. Yeah, like he's just going to get, I think, a lot more work than people are thinking. I think they're just afraid of all the buzz in camp of all the other running backs, and I think they're missing the bigger picture. Is that Sean Payton, he rotates only really 2 running backs, and when he has a guy that he likes, they get the touches, and if you can see 250 touches and then some, I want that guy this late in drafts. You're not going to find any other running back that's going to be sniffing that kind of amount of workload or volume, even if it's not on the best team or not. I think the Broncos might be a little bit better. That division is not as good. Just the Chiefs now. Chargers, Raiders, I'd say I think there'll be a lot of closer games there. So that's why I'm in on Javonte.
Look, I think I'm just having a trauma response because I had him in my main home league last season and he absolutely killed me. He was my weakest player by far. I can't handle it. I'll get counseling during the week. I'll be back. I'll have Javonte Williams love come next week. Now, with all these other players, I've got like a paragraph of notes. With this guy, it just says running back 3, and that's the only note I have. Bobby, tell us about your guy because I'm with you 100% of the way.
Running back 3 overall, baby, last year. That's what Ben Wasley means here, kiddo. On a PPR points per game basis, 18 fantasy points. Hello, world. But we all hate him for some reason. He's going in the 80s right now, okay? Touchdown regression. Woo! It's going to be a touchdown. He had 21 touchdowns. He's going to be terrible this year. Well, so what I did, I said, you know what? You guys are right. There's touchdown regression. It's like winter's coming. If you watch Game of Thrones, touchdown regression is coming for Raheem Mostert, and I totally get that. So I took a trip down memory lane, and I wanted to see how many guys in their careers had 18 rushing touchdowns in a season and returned to the same team the next year. There was 10 of those players, okay? The one thing that was slightly alarming was that they, on average, lost 2 games the next year. Don't know if that had to do with the workloads or whatever, but I thought that was kind of interesting. They played 2 less games the following year, but they still scored 11 touchdowns. And by the way, that was in 13 games, all right? So on an average of 13 games, these guys, the next season, were averaging almost 1 touchdown per game. If you factor in a 17-game pace for Raheem Mostert, that's like 15 touchdowns. So that still sounds pretty awesome, especially where you can get Raheem Mostert. If you apply that touchdown regression, which he goes from 18 to 11.2, let's say he does the average, he would lose two or so fantasy points a game, 15.9 PPR points per game. Yeah, that's terrible. That would have been RB11 last year, folks. So let's factor in the touchdown regression. And sure enough, he's just the RB11. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Oh, but he's old, Bob. He's an old SOB. Why would you want a guy like that? Get the young, fresh legs in there. You know what I mean? Jeff's throwing out guys with torn knees, and I'm not even going to get into the next guy and forget that. I'm talking about some real high upside players here only, folks. So what about the old guys? Is there any good old guys, Bob? Name one age 32 running back that's ever been good. You know what? I one-upped you, MFers, and I gave you 5. All right, here's 5 players. 2013, a man named Fred Jackson, RB11 at age 32. Adrian Peterson, by the way, at 33 years old. I upped it 1 year because you know what? 32 plus seems fair, right? Is that fair, guys? Can I do that?
So fair.
So fair. RB19. Frank Gore with the Colts, RB15. Back-to-back seasons, baby. Darren Sproles, maybe not the best comp, RB24. But here's my favorite one of all. D'Angelo Williams with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2015, RB6. Come on, people. He's still getting majority of the first team reps. Watch the preseason. And by the way, McDaniel's kind of like, yeah, you know, Mostert, he kind of just passively always says, yeah, because all the chain talk, he keeps talking about, yeah, but, you know, behind Mostert, he even says it himself. Take this guy in round, you can take him in round 6, the 5-6 turn. Take him, enjoy him, have fun.
Totally agree. I mean, you can talk about his age. We're talking about a guy with like 650 career carries. Like, he hasn't been a starter for his whole career. He doesn't have a lot of wear on his tires. Derrick Henry does that in 2 years. Like, we're talking about a guy who's still got a long way to go. I know he's older, but he's not very old, and he's more of a speed back. And the weird thing about speed is it kind of remains. Like, you can remain a good runner well into your 30s. I don't understand the Mostert slander at all. I'm really tempted to put him above Achane. The only reason I haven't is because consensus is so far apart, but it makes no sense to me. It's really obvious that Mostert is the number one guy and that Achane is way behind him. They will use Achane, but mainly in the second half in games they're winning by a heap. And that happened a lot last season. They were winning massive blowout games, and Achane was having these massive games. But realistically, most games, you're going to see a whole lot of Mostert because he is the better player. He's the more reliable player. And sure, towards the end of a game, you will see some Achane, but I don't really want to be relying on that. I want the guy that's starting. I want the guy that's getting the goal line carries. I want the guy who's going to be their number one back. I don't understand. I will have 0 Achane outside Dynasty leagues, and I'm going to have a whole lot Raheem Mostert. Jeff, tell us you're on board.
Oh, yeah. I don't believe in Achane. I have my own personal feelings. He is an Aggie, so that's okay. I'll let him forgive himself for that. But no, in all seriousness, though, it's, you know, Achane, he was just one of the most efficient running backs in NFL history last season. And I just look at it as, can he become even more efficient? I just don't see it. So it's like you're paying at his ceiling, and if he doesn't do it, he's going to be a bust. I think he has bust written all over him going in the second round of draft. So I'd rather get the starter, and that's Raheem Mostert. So everyone be smart. Take the starter. It's not too difficult.
Totally agree. And it's the other thing to keep in mind. A lot of people are saying, well, Mostert gets injured all the time, so surely he's got to get an injury. And if he does, you know who's going to take over? It's not going to be Achane. It's going to be Jalen Wright. It's going to be Jeff Wilson. Like, they're going to bring these other guys in. It's always going to be a committee. They spent next year's third-round pick to go out and get Jalen Wright because they want a true three-man committee. You are never going to see a situation where Devon Achane suddenly becomes the lead back in Miami. That's just not in the realms of possibility. He is what he is. He is that explosive change of pace back. Mostert is the guy that they're going to use on every down, and you want him in your fantasy team.
I gotta disagree. We were doing so good. I felt like I was literally planning our vacation. I was like, boys trip. We're gonna have so much fun, and now it's canceled. Listen, the slander on Achane is a little over. By the way, I think what happened last year, we saw down the stretch, Mostert started getting a little banged up. Achane was in and out of the lineup. And I think the Dolphins were like, we need to make sure that we're filling up the pipeline with guys that are similar molds because we know this works. Jeff Wilson's a nice player. He does not fit perfectly into what they're doing. Mostert and Achane had so much success last year because of the types of players they were. So I think what they did was, by the way, and I love Mostert, but he is 32. So they're filling up the pipeline. So yes, if Mostert goes
32
down,
is young.
No, it's true in real life. But yeah, I mean, listen, at this point, after some of the names I called out, I think he could be like the next Frank Gore. I'd be super excited. But no, but in all seriousness, though, the aspect of, I'm not calling him, I'm just saying they have to plan for the future, right? They have Tua, they have Tyreek. This team is ready to start taking the next step now. And if Mostert does, the injury bug has been there, so I get that too. But I'm not scared of it because it's already baked into all of his ADP. Like, we're not getting RB1. We're not paying RB1 value for this guy. But I do want to push back. I think Achane is someone where I actually could see if there is regression, remember, he averaged 17.5 PPR points per game last year. So with regression for him, he could still be at 14, 15 fantasy points, give you low-end, maybe high-end RB2 value. But you're right, Jeff. I think second round, I actually had him way too high. I actually moved him closer to that 2-3 turn.
Yeah. Look, as someone who's been 32 for the last 6 years, highly offended.
You just roll it over.
I accept your point. Your point. Look, look, I got to be honest. Mostert was actually a significantly better pick than the guy I've gone with, but I just really wanted to talk about this guy because I just feel like he's going so late in drafts, and he shouldn't have. Reality is, Rhamondre Stevenson was a major bust last year. But frankly, the Patriots were a massive bust last year, and it's not even slightly surprising. They had no weapons. They were constantly chasing games. And once they were out of contention, they just kind of lent on Ezekiel Elliott, and Stevenson was injured. But look at what they did during the offseason. They signed Stevenson to one of the league's biggest running back contracts. Now, to be fair, the Patriots do stupid stuff with contracts all the time. They've been doing it with wide receivers for years, so it's not shocking that they do it with a running back. Having said that, they still gave Stevenson 4 years and $36 million with half of that guaranteed. Yes, they signed Antonio Gibson, but to a significantly smaller contract. And realistically, Gibson's basically a backup at this stage in his career, which is a little bit unfair on him, but realistically he is. He's a very good backup, and he may get some receiving work, but he's still the backup. Stevenson is primed for a big bounce-back season. We're talking about a guy that only 2 seasons ago was the top 10 running back, and you can get him in the latter half of the 6th round. You can get him at the same time you're getting guys like Keenan Allen and Christian Kirk, who realistically I don't particularly want starting for my fantasy teams. Stevenson, I would happily take him as my running back too, especially with that value. I feel so good about the idea of stocking up early on wide receivers, getting my hero RB, stocking up on wide receivers, and suddenly I can go get Rhamondre Stevenson. I can go get Raheem Mostert later in drafts. All of a sudden, my team looks absolutely amazing because I know I have that security of a heap of touches. Jeff, tell me you're on this Stevenson bandwagon with me.
I was in the preseason. I still kind of am. I know their system is changing. They're going to be more run heavy. And that was one of their big free agents they brought back and signed with this new regime. But they did also bring in Antonio Gibson. And one of my concerns is that I thought Rhamondre Stevenson was a really good pass catcher. And that's what Antonio Gibson's strength is. So I worry on third down that Gibson's going to get more third down work, limiting kind of his upside. But I still think he's going to get a lot of workload with his contract. I just worry about third down.
I agree. I think that's fair. My hope is that they brought Gibson in as kind of like a like-for-like backup. Kind of like what the Rams have done with Blake Corum, where they brought in a player who's got a similar 3-down skill set. That's how I'm viewing this Gibson situation, but I can definitely see that that's clearly where the risk is with Stevenson. But realistically, I think that's probably also why you can get him so cheap as well, because everyone's really seeing that risk a lot. Bobby, what's your thoughts on the Pats running back situation?
So this doesn't happen a lot, but like my rankings versus ADP are the Spider-Man meme. Like, I have him ranked at 67. His ADP is 67, and I'm like Switzerland here. I kind of think it's appropriate. The team isn't good, per se. They don't – like, the Jacoby Brissett, Alex Van Pelt duo, by the way, we've seen it already. So, in 2022, Jacoby Brissett started the first 11 games for that or I think it was 12 that season before Deshaun Watson came back from his suspension. Alex Van Pelt was the offensive coordinator for the Browns that year. And he was able to, during that season, the Browns were top 10 in fantasy points scored at the running back position. So I'm not overly concerned. That's why I'm not fading Stevenson, because I'm like, we already saw this kind of whole thing happen. I understand the Browns' infrastructure and their offensive line is a little better than what the Patriots are, but I think we're not talking about top, Nick Chubb numbers right now. We're talking about a guy you're getting in the 6th, 7th round. So it's a little bit all relative there. The other thing that I found interesting is that the Patriots' run blocking, according to PFF, is ranked 13th. So heading into 2024. Now, granted, that's their assumption, but that's top half of the NFL. PFF clearly does some – I don't do offensive line evaluation personally. I tend to defer to some other people. PFF is one of them I do look at. But the thing I like the most, he did operate as a 3-down back. I mean, you watch the preseason. Antonio Gibson might spell him from time to time, but he could be one of the biggest snaps guys in the NFL in the sense of how much he's on the field, because they don't have – like Gibson, listen, he kind of flopped for us. I loved him a few years ago. Talk about being bitter. At least this happened to you last year, Ben, with Javonte. I've been bitter for years on Antonio Gibson. So I just think Stevenson's going to be the workhorse, the main guy. We've seen Alex Van Pelt already in Jacoby Brissett. And if they go to Drake May, we have a long history of seeing that the rookie impact on running backs isn't that bad. It's wide receivers that really get the hit. So I'm okay with where he's going.
Yeah. You say you're Switzerland, but that just really feels like you're pro ADP. And if you're pro ADP, you're anti-me, because I am very much on the Stevenson should be higher bandwagon. So I took that personally, and now I'm going to snipe the player from you in the next rounds. I don't know who it's going to be, but I'm looking at your rankings, and I've got my sniper ready. I'm ready to go.
There's some guys in there, so let's just Ben, listen, I love Stevenson. I moved him up mentally. He's up to like 55. Yeah. So let's just calm down. Let's not do anything rash. Let's not take any sleepers. Let's not do anything irrational right now. All right? Let's focus. Back to the show.
Love it. Do we have any extra comments before we wrap things up, Bobby?
We do. Jamie was talking a little bit about in 2021 rookie draft, I traded Mostert, Sermon, and 3.5 Freiermuth, which became Freiermuth, with Jamar Chase. I mean, that's not bad. You know, Mostert became something. I mean, Sermon too. It's kind of a little bit of a
Sermon this year. Just saying.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a good. If you're a Jonathan Taylor owner, I think he's probably one of the better handcuffs to have. And like you said, I mean, listen, Taylor has been missing games here and there, and Sermon, we saw last year with Zach Moss that there's clearly something going on there in Indianapolis that's pretty solid. So basically what Ben just said, Jamie, is that trade was terrible and Jamar Chase is the worst. Okay, so that's what I heard from there. All right, that's all we got.
I'm about to take Trey Sermon in that draft. I've got my pick. I'm getting Trey Sermon up. You put it in my head now. I can't stop.
Don't do it. Don't, Ben. Now people have Jonathan Taylor. Just don't do anything crazy here. Okay, just calm down. I know you're whatever you guys do down there. I don't know. I never know what he's doing down there. You know what I mean? So, but clearly sniping players. All right, let's wrap it up.
Let's do it. Jeff, where can we find you? What do you got coming up this week?
Yeah, looking more at running backs. I took over the running backs rankings, and so it's been a good exercise as we get closer to drafts now, in the middle of drafts, looking at running backs. So I'll continue looking at that. I really recently did top 5 running backs that will outperform their ADP, and I'll be looking at busts next. So hopefully those guys those players don't make your team. So if they do, I apologize in advance, but good luck to you.
What do you got to do? All we can do is give you the information. It's up to you to actually use it properly. And Bobby, what's happening with you this week? What are we looking out for on Raspball?
I think I'm just going to kick back and relax. You know what I mean? Forget about it. It's not like it's a really important time of the year or anything, folks. No, listen, I'm up there. By the way, go check out my preseason risers and fallers. Yeah, the article came out last week, but I am updating it almost every day with new updates to my top 150. We also, by the way, I want to make sure everybody knows, heading into this season, we're super excited. We have the Sunday Live Start Sit Show every Sunday, 2 hours before kickoff. Make sure you join the team. We'll answer all your start sit questions. And also make sure you go to razzball.com. We have a really cool data tab where you're going to find really unique data that's going to help you kind of set your lineups every week. We have the slot versus wide, points per game allowed tool, the wins versus losses, and also the home and erase, the way split tool. I think those are really fun. We also have the touchdown tool that helps you look at regression and progression. All right, positive regression, whatever people say these days. I don't know. So basically, to answer your question, Ben, we got a lot going on right now, and we're excited here at razzball.com.
Yeah, it's absolutely all happening. And on razzball.com, I personally have my what to expect from rookies this season. So if you want to know what you should expect from the rookies you drafted in your redraft league, should you be drafting rookies into your redraft league? Well, you've got to check out my articles. The quarterback and running back articles are already out. Wide receiver article is coming out soon. Plus, if you want some longer form videos with some deeper analysis, you can also go check out my channel, which is the Fantasy First Down as well. And you should check us all out on Twitter and Instagram as well. Jeff is at Jefferson 2_21. Bobby is at Bobby LaMarco. And I am at The Fantasy First Down on Instagram and at Fantasy First Down with no O on Twitter. That's all we've got for the Razzball Fantasy YouTube show today. We hope you'll join us in the coming days. We've got heaps of awesome fantasy content coming out. Good luck for your drafts. We will see you next time.